Hey there, this is Terry Wheat from onceuponawheat.com. Thanks so much for joining us. Today I'm going to talk again about Salem, Massachusetts. I'm doing a three-part series. I know that there are three groups of people who can be hesitant or uncomfortable with visiting Salem sometimes, and I wanted to address each of those. I'm a member of each of those communities, and so I wanted to give my perspective. I did one already. The first was addressing parents with young kids. This one is about history lovers and buffs who may be hesitant to go, and then the next one will be on Christians. So I know there are a number of history lovers and buffs who think that there couldn't be anything relevant left in Salem because it happened over 300 years ago, and that there probably aren't any structures standing, and that there is nothing interesting to look at. They think it's just touristy and commercialized, and I want to give my perspective on that. We spent our day exploring the witch trials and executions of 1692, and we absolutely filled a day and we had a great time. So there are a number of things still standing that were relevant to the witch trial events and that were standing even then. In Danvers, we started our itinerary in Danvers, and I have done 9 different posts on Salem on my travel blog, and I talk about our itinerary. Every place that we visited is on there for you to take a look at. We started at Danvers because, as you may know, Danvers was the original Salem village. It is the epicenter, the start of the whole thing. It is where the girls started having their fits. It's where they started making accusations. It's where the people in that little village were pulled from because they were the accused and they were jailed. It's where the interrogations began. So it was the heart of Salem where these events happened. And so Danvers is only, I think, about 17 minutes from Salem. I have that on my post, but it's really close, and it still has quite a few structures that were standing that were relevant to those events. It has a number of homes that belonged to the accused who were later hanged after they were believed guilty of being witches, and there are only one of those homes that are open to the public, though. All of the rest of them are privately owned. So the one that is open to the public is the Rebecca Nurse Homestead, and we visited there. And that not only is significant because it is the only home open of the accused, but it also has the only known exact locations of remains of the accused executed victims. So Rebecca's family, they went and retrieved her body from the execution site that night. The bodies were just thrown into a crevice. And so her family retrieved her. They brought her back home and buried her out back in the Nurse Family Cemetery, which is a really small family cemetery. They left her grave unmarked so that she could rest in peace. And so they don't know the exact square footage where she lays, or where she lies, but they have a fairly good idea. And a century later, a group erected a monument for her grave marker, and it has her name, her life dates, and a quote that she is famous for saying during her trial. So, and then it also has the grave of George Jacobs Sr. He was another one of the accused who was hung in 1692, and his body was found in, I believe, the 1950s when they were excavating the property that he had once owned and where his home had been for a housing development. And they found him, and his remains were put into the town archives for a number of years. And then in 1992, on the 300th year anniversary of those tragic events, they brought his remains to the Rebecca Nurse Homestead and buried them in the Nurse Family Cemetery with Rebecca. So his are exactly known where they are. It is marked by a grave, and his are the only ones that they know exactly where they lie. So it's significant for those reasons. Also, it is a historic home. It was built in the, I believe, at least in the maybe early 1600s, and that was a treat for a Midwesterner because we do not have homes that old here, and so seeing all of those homes in Danvers was really enjoyable to see homes that old, over a century older than anything that we have here. And it also includes a number of old other historic buildings on the property, and then it includes an exact replica that was built for a TV movie set. And so it is a sobering visit. It is heavy, but it's really, really incredible to be able to visit. So that is still standing and open for you to see. They also have a number of they have the site, the building, which held some of the initial interrogations. They have some of the accusers' homes. They have the Danvers witch trial memorial monument, which is gorgeous stone monument in a small park area, and it is the only one of the 3 memorials that is dedicated to all 25 victims, 20 of them executed, and then the other 5 who died in the dungeon-like conditions of the jail. And so that was a great trip and a can't miss if you're wanting to explore those events. And then we traveled over to Salem, Massachusetts today, which was Salem town back then. So Danvers was the village, Salem town was the greater, larger community. And it only has one structure that still remains that was pertinent to the Salem witch trial events, and that is the witch house. And that sounds sensationalized. It sounds like maybe a tourist trap, but it is absolutely not. It was owned, the home of one of the Salem witch trial judges, the magistrate Judge Jonathan Corwin, and his records indicate in other trials and other situations that sometimes he would bring the accused or the criminals to his home to be interrogated, or trial proceedings would happen there. Many of the Salem witch trial records have been lost or destroyed. I say lost, but just pretty soon after those events, people realized what a tragedy had occurred, and so some of the records were destroyed, some were hidden with other pieces of their family, some out of state, and so all of the records haven't been located, so they don't know if any of the Salem victims were interrogated or tried in this home, but it is certainly possible. It is relevant for other reasons too. Judge Jonathan Corwin was related to another of the Salem witch trial judges. His nephew was the sheriff who was in charge of arresting a number of the people, and he oversaw the torture and the death of Giles Corey, who was crushed to death. And so this home saw many, many things related to those witch trial events and to the people who were part of that. So it has incredible artifacts there, some of them. It has some first period pieces that were from the New England area, not necessarily only in Salem, but they were that era for New England. And so that's pretty incredible. You don't see that a lot. And then they have one of the big highlights for me is that they had the only possession, other than a home, of the accused executed victims that I'm aware of. And they have that there. It belonged to a husband and wife who were both accused as witches and hung as so in 1692, and so you can read more about that in my post. I have one on the witch house. I have one on the Danvers itinerary. I have one on the Rebecca Nurse homestead. I have a number of them detailing everything we did that day, so you can read more if you want to, but it's a great historic home in its own right. It was built in the mid-1650s, and so it has incredible exhibits there where I learned so much. We travel to a lot of museums and we've read books, and we are educated in a number of historical things, but we all learned things at that house, so it was really important to see. The other places that they have in Salem that a historian or history lover would love, they have the Salem Witch Trials Memorial, and that is Salem's memorial to the 20 who were executed. Again, it is a beautiful stone monument and a must-see, very moving. It sits right next to the cemetery where some of the Salem witch trial judges are buried, some of the accusers are buried, and some of the victims' family members are buried. And so everything was kind of intertwined. And they also, I visited the field where Giles Corey was tortured and crushed to death. Today, it is a small cemetery. At the time, it was a field that sat directly behind the dungeon-like jail in Salem, and his body lies somewhere buried there in that small field. They don't know exactly where, but his remains are believed to be there. And then we also visited a couple of museums, one of them that had a beam that was from the Salem witch trial, or dungeon, like jail, and it had a live reenactment. We visited another live reenactment and small museum, and then we visited the site where the victims were hung. And today there is a memorial there as well to the 19 who were hung. So there are definitely things there that history lovers would very much appreciate and enjoy, and enough to fill your day for sure. If you wanted to go and visit some of the actual locations where homes and pertinent sites used to exist but have since been torn down, you can do that. Those locations are available online. And then if you wanted to expand out into the communities, the Salem witch trials, the accusations, the jailings and arrest, and the people who were accused started in the village, it expanded to the town, and then it bled out into other communities. And those people were accused by the Salem accusers, and they were brought in and ripped from their homes, and they were accused, jailed, and sometimes executed. And so a number of them have a monument erected at their own properties in these communities to honor them. And so if you wanted to go see those, that would absolutely take more than a day. And then Salem has a number of things that aren't relative to the Salem witch trial events at all, or to witches, and they have, you know, a rich maritime life and history. They have arts and entertainment and culture, and you know, there are a lot of things to do and see. There are things that we missed being able to do because we were in a time crunch, and so there are definitely things there to fill your day and to enjoy. So I love going to sites, to visit, to historical sites, things that I learned about as a kid in school that I dreamed about, but that seemed so far away, and the people almost seemed cartoonish to me as a kid. And so when I get to go and walk across these same footprints and stand in these same spots and in these same homes and see these same things, these trees, the landscape, and feel and be where these real events really happen, and these were real people going through these horrible, tragic events, or sometimes great events. You know, anything historical I enjoy going to, and it really brings it to life to me, and especially to my kids. And so if you appreciate history, and if you are fascinated like I am with the Salem witch trial events and horrified by them, then I would absolutely encourage you to go. For me, it was a bucket list item, a must-see, something I've wanted to do for most of my life, and so I would encourage you to do that as well if that's important to you. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope that helped you and give you some perspective so that you can better make your decision. If you haven't yet, if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel, then you won't miss any of our videos. A number of them are based on historical visits, but there will be other things on here as well. And then visit our site, onceuponawheat.com. That's our travel blog, and that's where I put all of my articles. Since we love history, you're going to see a lot of that there also. And come follow us on social media. We'd love to have you. We are available also on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest. And so we're at a number of places and we'd love to see you at all of them. So thanks so much, and I will see you soon.